latest film from the Anzio bridgehead tells the story of how supplies are being maintained on that front. The whole question of supply is one that's often taken for granted, although it involves the work of more people than any other part of the war effort. At Anzio, which is a comparatively small front, the supply problem is quite as big as it is vital. You can see that ducks play an important part in the solution. But when it comes to what everyone still refers to as the second front, or invasion, the problem must obviously be enlarged out of all recognition. The organization necessary for such a complex operation is naturally secret. All that can be revealed at present is an indication of the vast amount of material required. These pictures give a brief glimpse of a minute fraction of that material. Gliders provide another angle on the story of invasion preparations. The airborne army is a weapon developed in this war. Clearly, the training of that army and the production of machines is a big item. Horsa gliders towed by Albemarles are seen during practice operations somewhere in Britain. But the question of supply dominates all preparations. Success in battle will largely depend not only on getting supplies up to the front at the right time, but also on maintaining their constant flow from the factories.
In September, we jumped on the toe of Italy at Messina and hacked the enemy on the shins at Salerno. In January came the kick on the kneecap at Anzio. These are Army Film Unit and Newsreel Association pictures of the new Allied landings 30 miles south of Rome. Here is Salerno again, and the beaches and harbors in and near Naples, sending off the great seaborne convoys to catch General Kesselring on his seaward flank. The Anzio-Nettuno surprise attack launched by General Mark Clark, 57 miles north of the Fifth Army's main line. The now familiar sight of a great armada of floating steel venturing on invasion. Men embark in assault craft, run up on shore, and head out to the waiting transport ships filling with British and American troops. Admiral Troubridge of the Royal Navy commanding the forces which landed the British troops. Decks are crammed with American Rangers. They're told of the forthcoming mission where they will go in with British commandos to establish a bridgehead. Yes, tonight's the night. The Allied air attack during the period of the Fifth Army landings was on a large and formidable scale. The Montgomery terror technique of first winning the supremacy of the air was successfully applied. Admiral Lowry of the United States Navy was in command of the Allied warships employed. Covering fire was laid down as landing craft of all types swept into the beaches in the wake of the minesweepers. While still some distance offshore, desultory shelling from enemy artillery was experienced. Troops in the first assault craft were astonished as they came ashore by the absence of enemy resistance. At this early stage, there was every indication that the Fifth Army had pulled off a brilliant surprise maneuver. The Rangers and commanders were experiencing another Messina, the first swift excursion inland to enlarge the beachhead before the enemy counterattacks could make themselves felt. By the early morning light, you see amphibious ducks penetrating along taped-off tracks through minefields which have had their first sweeping. Standing among the engineers while they prod, detect, and dig for landmines is General Alexander in conversation with Admiral Troubridge. Consolidating the swiftly won position comes the second wave of assaulting troops. Not a casualty suffered and hardly a shot fired. Those few precious unmolested hours were sufficient for us to establish ourselves firmly. Once the initial impetus was spent, it became the German intention to try and contain our force within its defensive perimeter. An innovation of this assault was the use of floating jetties over which much of our heavy stuff was driven ashore. The harbour of Nettuno is Porto d'Anzio. This is it, packed tight with a vast assortment of vessels. The Emperor Nero built it. Now we do more than fiddle on his doorstep. General Clark made a dawn-to-dusk visit to the area, traveling to and from the beaches in his seaplane. Flying above the Mussolini Canal, we see how the Germans destroyed the bridges to slow up our advance. The town of Anzio itself bore much evidence of the pounding it had received. The civilian population had been evacuated by the time we entered. Here and there, groups of German prisoners are to be seen, shepherded by fellows with a natural dislike for Nazis. At the time these pictures were taken, this road marked the boundary of our beachhead. Along it march American and British troops, the boys to whom we say, well done in this latest Anglo-American feat of arms. Twisting a lyric for the occasion, it's Show Me the Way to Go Rome. General Alexander loosed off another classic left hook and made contact.